There are three basic types of levels of care. One is independent living, and independent living is exactly what it's saying. The individual is expected to be independent. And likely they do provide at least 2 meals a day. They will provide some limited transportation. They provide activities, and they provide a little bit of housekeeping. Otherwise, the person is expected to function independently, and they will not have services available to them beyond what I've mentioned. The next level is assisted living, and that's typically for people who need some level of physical assistance because of physical impairment or cognitive impairment. It's important to be aware of what type of assistance, how much assistance is being afforded to an individual, what is part of the financial plan, and what are the a la carte services. Most assisted living facilities have levels of care. They will evaluate the individual and can go from level 1, minimal care, to level 5, a lot of care. Be aware of the costs involved and whether or not for the long term the individual is going to be able to afford care at the level required to stay in the assisted living facility. I'd also like just to spend a moment talking about memory care. And memory care can be at various levels. You can have individuals who have mild dementia to individuals who have very significant dementia and have very significant physical care needs. It could be an assisted living facility that caters to dementia care. Again, you want to be aware of the financing and how you can finance for the long term. Particularly when you're looking at dementia care, I believe it's important to make sure that you are aware of what the nursing staff is. They can have ancillary staff, attendant staff, but especially with dementia care, when medications might be needed to be given on a non-routine basis, it's important to make sure that the personnel is available on a 24/7 basis to provide the nursing interventions, to provide the medications that are necessary. Nursing home care is for those individuals with significant needs, whether they're cognitive or physical or both. In nursing homes, there's a higher ratio of caregivers, direct caregivers to residents, and they have a much higher level of care and able to manage a wide variety of physical care needs. The reality is that most older adults do not end up living the last years of their lives in nursing homes, but for those who do have significant needs, nursing home care can be the best care for them. There is one more option that's available for older adults, and that is a continuing care community. A continuing care community simply is an enterprise that includes independent, assisted, and nursing home care. The benefit for some families is that somebody can enter in at independent living and be guaranteed being in the same environment throughout their life. When entering a continuing care community, individuals will pay an upfront and fairly significant endowment fee, which guarantees care through the rest of life. Usually the endowment fee or the guarantee for life care is provided when somebody is entering at the independent level. The continuing care community may be open to somebody interested in the assisted living and beyond, but then there might be a different financial arrangement. Generally, the continuing care community is for those individuals who are entering in when they're fairly healthy and able-bodied. They're moving in at an independent level and are guaranteeing assisted care if needed and nursing home care. The important thing in choosing a continuing care community, from my mind, is to really pay attention to all levels of care. The independent living facility may be quite attractive, and likewise the assisted living part of the facility might also be attractive. Oftentimes the nursing home piece is neglected as people are making the decision. And if you're going into a continuing care community because you want to be guaranteed quality care throughout your life, make sure that the quality is there through all levels of care, especially the nursing home care when you're going to be most vulnerable and most dependent on others. In all circumstances, I recommend due diligence and a buyer beware stance when you're looking at a facility. Questions that I think are worth considering are, how long has the facility been operating? While some people like a spanking new facility, my thought is that spanking new facilities often have a lot of kinks in the system and a lot of glitches that need to be worked out. I prefer a community that has a long history. Likewise, I think it's really important to ask how long have the key administrators been in place, the executive director, the director of nursing, the director of resident services or social services. If a facility has a frequent rotation of people in administration, I'm a little bit leery. Facilities that have longevity in their administrative staff as well as their direct patient care staff create a good culture and create a sense of cohesion. So having a facility that has individuals who've been working there for a long tenure recommends the facility to me. It's also important to be looking at the ratio of direct care providers to the residents, particularly in nursing homes when individuals are most vulnerable, but also in assisted living when the level of care might be fairly demanding. You want to make sure that there are enough direct care providers to the residents to ensure that the attention that your elder relative needs is going to be provided. I also think it's important to look at the ownership, whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit, remembering that for-profit facilities have an obligation often to their investors and their shareholders, whereas not-for-profits are obliged to sink in any extra monies into the facility and into their staff. So it's not an absolute one way or another, but I think it's a consideration. And finally, I mentioned previously the culture of the facility. Make sure that the culture fits your family's values, who the individual is that's going to be entering into the facility, so that facility becomes less of a facility and more of a home for you and your loved one.